and they gave him very little. So when a man of his stature stands and promises the people, because behind him was a promise that they never intended to keep, his image then becomes damaged. And even though history will record him as one of our great giants, South Africa today is still suffering. The black people in South Africa are still in great pain. The economy is in the hands of the whites, the Asians, the Arabs, and a few blacks. So South Africa's story is the same as the story of black people all over the world. And this is why, Gil, Elijah Muhammad came with a message to the black man. Because there's something evidently missing in us. We are not inferior. We are the fathers and mothers of civilization. But colonization and slavery has done something to the African mind that we need, as Elijah Muhammad said, to be resurrected from mental death. Now just think about that statement, Brother Gil, mental death. Because life is activity. And the activity of life is seen in business. The business of providing food, clothing, shelter, education, well-being, and health to your people. If we in America, being blessed to have graduated from some of the finest universities in this country, yet we are not providing food, clothing, or shelter, jobs, or health to our people, but are instead begging our former slave masters and their children to do this for us, then there's something in us that's missing that needs to be given.
But there was a fire in the 60s, especially among young people. SNCC and the students were very active, angry, vocal, and yet we don't see much of that today. What happened?
In the 60s, Brother Gil, when you and I were young men, younger men, we were filled with the inspiration of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X. And we were just a few days away from Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, and we were enriched with something that this present generation is missing. When we were segregated, you know, in the South, we governed our own schools. We had our own motels, hotels, restaurants, bars. We had gas stations, bus companies, insurance companies. We were doing something and keeping some of our dollars revolving in our own community, allowing us then to build an economic base for ourselves. But when the enemy saw that the money was staying in that circle, and that money he wanted in his circle, then integration was offered to black people, not for us to really become the friends of white people, but this hypocritical friendship was to lead us away from self into their arms, because now we could sleep in the finest hotels, eat in the best restaurants, etc., etc. So our money left home, and now it's still doing the same thing. We get nearly $100 billion a year out of the American economy. But that money comes in, goes out. Very little stays among us. So when we got public accommodations bill, the right to vote, and it looked like we were going to reach the promised land, our people of that generation didn't teach the young the history of our struggle. When I spoke with Harry Belafonte, who is one of our noble heroes, Brother Harry told me that he spoke at Howard University. And he said the thing that saddened him is that the students at Howard did not know their recent history, much less the ancient history of our struggle. So if we don't know the struggle, then the struggle can't continue. And that's the difference, Brother Gil, with the Jewish community and our community. Because there's not one Jewish child that is unfamiliar with the Jewish struggle and the Jewish Holocaust. And that is why they can say never again and mean it, because they're so conscious and so sensitive to anti-Semitism that they will never let it happen again.
And so are you indicting the educative system in this country as being deficient in teaching our young men and women about their own history?
There is no question that there is a deliberate effort not only to dumb down our children, but to dumb down the American people. There was a program on television during the presidential election where Senator Kerry was running for the presidency of the United States. And they went into a high school and they showed a picture of Senator Kerry. And the white children didn't know who he was. And they showed them a picture of Russell Simmons. And all the white children knew Russell Simmons. Because the young whites today are involved in the hip-hop culture and generation, so they know all the artists, but they don't know their own politicians. Mm-hmm. And when in Europe, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were getting free of the Soviet Union, and they were on the news, the children did not know. They couldn't go to a map and point out where Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania was. But I knew that, Gil, from the 6th grade when I was a young student in Boston, Massachusetts. I had an education, Gil, and I went to an all-black grammar school and a white high school that was integrated. But when I left high school, I had 4 years of Latin, 2 years of German, 2 years of French, 1 year of Spanish. I had algebra, trigonometry, calculus. I had plane geometry, solid geometry. I had ancient history, medieval history, modern history. And I was 16 years of age. And I went south to school. And I never bought a book because I didn't need one. My high school education got me through college. Not today.